What's up guys, Peepo here, and I'm gonna start today's video off talking about what I got in the mail the other day, and that is the new and improved Phantom Lacrosse Phantom Pocket. So you can get this from phantomlacrosse.com, but so it came in just a regular old box from where the location is, and comes in this kind of wrapping, kind of keeps it nice and simple. There's not much in the way of accessories or anything or oddities in the packaging or anything like that. Right on the back of the packaging is the instructions on how to input said device into your lacrosse stick. I will be installing this into my Rebel Offense from ECD. Feel like I got a handle for the pocket that I put in it. I plan on putting vortex mesh in it later, so taking this stuff out for now, and I'm going to test this out in a high-end new head, just to let you guys know what I think of it. So this first segment of the video is going to be me taking it out and just thinking about it before ever putting it into a head. Now, I did have an old video. I deleted it because it was more along the lines of a prototype to what it is now, and I didn't want to confuse you guys as to which one is which. So there's only one video, and it's this one. So for me anyway. But so kind of in this packaging, it has the instructions on the back, very simple. Even shows you the proper way to go about starting to use it, proper form, if you will, to start using the Phantom Pocket. So let's just get right into it and try and open this thing. It looks like there is no pull peel or anything like that, so either grab yourself a set of scissors or a knife. If you're going to do it with a knife, be careful. If you're young, I would say preteen, I would ask your parents to help you open said item so that you don't cut yourself, because Lord knows before I was in my teens I was cutting myself accidentally way too many times doing way too many things. Yeah. So slice that open real nice and easy. Comes right open and has a resealable thing, so if you decide to actually take it out of whatever head once you feel you've utilized it, now get it before I really start pulling it out and everything. This item, this device, is really to encourage proper form and proper beginner aspects of lacrosse. I mean, there's really good stringers out there like myself that can string up the perfect beginner's pocket and they'd be able to use it. But the thing is, that pocket doesn't necessarily enforce proper posture and form when it comes to how to do a follow through and everything like that. And the prototype that I ended up getting a hold of before, it showed promise for doing that. It just wasn't quite there, and having seen the final, or this version of the product at LaxCon and kind of messing with it a little bit, I have to say that there's definitely an improvement from the old one. But so this is really for anybody that's getting new into lacrosse, young players, people that don't have any experience with the proper motions of how to throw with a stick. They don't have anything developed as far as posture or form. So this really gets you to start working on that, because most of the time, and I talked with the creator of Phantom about this, and big thing is in lacrosse is that unless you're really doing hands-on coaching or teaching with a lacrosse player, most of the time a lacrosse player, especially one that doesn't have anybody that's in the family that plays lacrosse or had played lacrosse, they don't really develop proper usage of a stick. They get told, okay, hold the stick such and such and throw it like a catapult. And then they're like, okay, go do that on the wall all the time, blah, blah, blah. And then they develop their own style, and then it's not exactly progressive or efficient. And so eventually they develop these habits that aren't efficient and more than likely can cause issues with your body. I mean, I know plenty of people that have shoulder problems from lacrosse, including myself. But if you get the proper posture and everything like that, that shows on the back of this packaging actually, you want your hands kind of up and away from yourself. In a broad sense, you want it up and away from yourself, hand at the bottom, pointing at wherever you're pointing at with the bottom of the stick or your elbow, depends on your teacher. But it's kind of like football, point with the forehand and follow through. Follow through and the stick will go towards whoever you're throwing it to, and so on and so forth. But so that broad aspect is built on by the inefficient ways of somebody just going to a wall and doing what works for them, but not actually doing anything efficient. So the whole idea behind this is supposed to enforce the efficient posture and form. And yeah, I'm getting redundant. Alright, so I'll stop talking about that and get this sucker out of here. So right off the bat, pretty light, not too bulky or anything like that. I'll probably be reusing this later if I decide to take it out of the head, and then probably store it to the side until I meet a beginner that I need to probably lend it to. Alright, so right off the bat, your white sections, so like anything that's white here is a nice hard polymer or plastic. Looks like it's fused pretty well with this transparent section, which is a rubber polymer or rubberized material that is adhered, well, it looks like very efficiently, very well to the harder white plastic section. So it's flexible. You can definitely, you probably can, I wouldn't recommend facing off with it, but you can kind of go inside out if you want to. Ball hits it. I wouldn't recommend trying to do face-offs with this. So rubberized is kind of, I mean, it's rubber on rubber if you put a ball in it, so it has decent hold. It'll more than likely have decent hold. I mean, I know the prototype did. So rubber on rubber will tend to have very good friction, but it's not enough to where the ball can't freely roll and so on. So early models of this product, there wasn't much of a bottom area because, let's face it, a lot of people either one hand or two hand cradle, and it will sit low in the head, and there you go. And then when you go to throw or anything, you want it to sit in the sweet spot and then smooth right out. So kind of just as a broad spectrum of the mechanics of a pocket, it meets those requirements, at least to me. After that, so yeah, the transparent is very rubberized, I guess you could say sticky, will create hold. It has this hole right here that will let water or mud or whatever drain out, as well as create a little bit of a aerodynamics so that wind and such will actually travel through the pocket, so it doesn't just create drag. The top section here is supposed to go kind of sandwiched in between the scoop of the plastic or plastic of the scoop, and it's supposed to, one part's supposed to go on the inside, two other parts are supposed to go on the outside, and it just wedges in there, and then from there you use these little devices to adhere it. So this string is for your bottom string to hold it in place, and it has this locking mechanism that you use to lock the string in place, and then it comes with these 4 binding devices that go through the holes here as well as the top string holes of the lacrosse head, and it should lock it all in place and be fairly usable. So all in all, I'd have to say for right now, before installing it, I like the material. It's flexible, it seems like it'll be nice and sturdy, especially with the amount of abuse that most younger players will put into a head nowadays. And yeah, when you see this next, it will be in the Rebel offense, and I'll have put in a little bit of work with it, and I'll give you guys a little bit of a better idea as what I think of it. So, see you in a sec. And welcome back. So strung it up, well, attached it, and I mean, as you probably didn't see it because it was hyperlapse, time lapse, pretty quick, but it took me about maybe 5 minutes or so to install, and it wasn't too difficult. I'd have to say the most difficult part was stretching out the rubber attachment pieces here in order to incorporate this part through the loop. The bottom string is fairly easy to attach. You simply make a loop, go up through, and then loop it through the bottom string holes like such, and then down through, and then attach it like that. Fairly easy, nothing too fancy or anything like that. Like I said earlier, the instructions on pretty much how to install everything is on the packaging for the Phantom Pocket. Now, pretty much getting into performance side of things, it's not too difficult to use. In fact, it's fairly simple to use. But the thing is, I talked about it earlier about how it's supposed to teach you proper form and such. Well, it really does pretty much teach you how to, it forces you to do that. So get your hands up away from your body and do a proper follow through, and it really makes you do that. Although it only efficiently works, that I've noticed, is if the ball doesn't get almost perfectly into the sweet spot, which is right here, it doesn't really work quite well. The ball will shift from low to high in contact. It won't really glide off of, but it will impact on the ledge here, and it will kind of come out a little too early or even too late, causing it to hook. So I would say that this pocket is more of a training aid for older, more experienced players. As far as with younger players, it will teach them from the beginning how to properly have their hands up and away from their body, proper follow through. It really just enforces all the little things that you're really supposed to focus, that you really shouldn't have to think about. It really makes you have to focus on those things, and which is why I say that it'd be better as a training tool than a actual game ready device, at least for older. For younger kids, I would say if you're new or younger, I would say it's perfect and works just fine for pretty much anybody. It does allow the ball to sit low. The ball can sit low in the pocket. It will easily come out once you tip forward, but it can and will sit low for cradles. As you can hear, kind of rattles. This is the noise that it makes more or less when you're doing wall ball. It's very, even though it's soft polymer rubber, it sounds like a trampoline when it impacts. So it's not overly efficient. So it really, again, it forces you to do the basics. Soft catching. So if you kind of stab at the ball a lot when you're trying to catch, this is very unforgiving. You will drop the ball almost every time if you're somebody that stabs at your catches. Again, it's one of those things where you have to, it'll build your hand-eye coordination on how and where you're catching with the stick. So even if say the stick's behind your head when you're catching, it'll kind of force you to be aware of where the biggest catching area is of the head, which is up top where the scoop is, which is where the sweet spot, the deepest point of the phantom pocket is. It does have enough hold for toe drags, any of the fancy stuff, and again, it's going to force you to kind of change your style a little bit to more of a precise way instead of just doing whatever works and it'll stay in sort of thing. This hole here is for drainage. It worked. It was raining the other day and I was out testing it out. Definitely works for that. But more or less, if it doesn't drain out through that hole, you're going to be carrying a ball and trying to throw a bunch of water. This was a lot dirtier. You can kind of see that it's a little not so clean and fresh as when I first opened it up. It was a lot dirtier than it is now, but you just take a wet wipe or a washcloth or something and it'll clean right off, and it's almost like it's brand new. I noticed that the dirtier it gets, the less friction and hold it has. So earlier I referred to that it has kind of like a rubberized feel to it. As it gets dirtier and whatnot, that smooths out, so you lose that consistency of grip, but you just clean it off and it's good as new, ready to go. Yeah, I mean, kind of, again, it really forces you to have to do a lot of to emphasize on the basics. My main thing about it is maybe coming up with a slightly different way to attach the top to the scoop, because unless you have a very protective scoop design like the Rebel kind of does, your STX heads that have this glide scoop, not glide scoop, speed scoop. They have the speed scoop design, and then Under Armour has the glide scoop. Those sort of designs definitely help you with how the attachment is. I tried putting it on the inside of the head, which worked just fine, whether it was scooping, throwing, whatever. It didn't really affect anything having these nubs on the inside. So if you get this, that's probably a good way to keep it from hitting those. Otherwise, these really are there to protect your where it attaches at. Otherwise, on turf, I noticed that it kind of stops it. It doesn't really have a nice gliding feel to it. But then again, the one thing that it doesn't really have you enforce as far as basics are concerned is when you're going in for a scoop, they tell you to get your backhand low. If you do it with this, you're just going to be contacting the deep point of the pocket as well as your attachment nubs here. Basically, this will more or less force you, as far as performance-wise, to scoop at a much steeper angle. So maybe in like a future design, maybe I know this is more or less supposed to be the final design concept for this. But if there ends up being a future design or somebody else tries to come up with something similar, I strongly recommend trying to figure out a different way to attach the top. But otherwise, I don't really have any complaints with it. I wouldn't use it for face-offs, but it is malleable to where it'd be okay, I suppose. The white parts are definitely stiffer. You can definitely feel the ball against them. That's another thing that you got to work on with it, is when you're going to cradle to throw or shoot, you really have to be aware of your cradle, otherwise the ball kind of pops out. Again, and this is my final time saying it, I really think this is a really good training tool for anybody that's trying to improve their form. I definitely had to get my hands up and away from myself to shoot as hard as I could and accurately. There wasn't really any room for error as far as that's concerned, so it's a really good concept. I think it's one of the better items out there for what could be a training aid. Definitely for your younger, newer players. Advanced players, unless you guys are trying to improve form or anything like that, kind of nitpick at little things that you want to improve on, this is a good device to use. So, Phantom Pocket from Phantom Lacrosse. Check it out. Pretty cool thing, and I will probably be using it for some of the newer players, people that I want to work on their techniques and so on. So, thanks for watching, guys. I'll check you later.